This is a painting of a coastal scene in Anglesey, Wales. I went there a few years ago with my family, so it was a beautiful place. Okay, so now I'm beginning to paint, and it's on big paper, 45 times 50 or 55 centimeters, and I'm wetting the surface with my mop brush, quite a big mop brush. And now I'm adding yellow ochre. So it's all very watery, and it's tilted so the paint runs down. But soon I'm going to realize that I have to remove the top sheet, because if I don't, the whole pad is going to buckle. So in a minute what I'm going to do is separate the top sheet, at least 3 sides, the bottom and the left side and the right hand side. I'm going to separate them, but I'm going to keep the top attached, and at the bottom I'm going to add 2 clips. So when it expands, I can take the clips off and just add them back on again, and that way it won't make the whole pad buckle. So now I've added brilliant orange. Now I'm adding pure yellow ochre again, but a thicker mix. So using these same colours but a thicker mix adds a lot more variety. And brilliant orange again, but a thicker mix. And I'm using pure colours because I really want this to be luminous. That's just pure brilliant orange. What I mean is not mixed with any other colours. I mean, it's not so thick a mix, it's not that thick. And I'm just trying to get these lovely cloud shapes. And now I'm going a bit stronger with alizarin crimson and phthalo blue. Well, just a touch of phthalo blue. It's mostly just alizarin crimson. And I'm just adding a bit more to these clouds. And now I think I'm going really dark with quite a lot of phthalo blue, there it is, and a touch of alizarin crimson to make a nice purple, but a much bluer purple. I'm doing that bottom part where the horizon is, and then a few clouds coming up. So it is a good idea to practice these painting clouds on like multimedia paper like Canson XL, just to loosen up and get used to painting them before you go really big, this size. I did this painting many times on much smaller size, and only when I was a bit more confident did I go for this big size painting. Now I've got a hard line at that horizon line, and I don't want that. So I'm going to soften it by wetting my brush, then I wipe it on a tissue so it's not so wet, or use my rag, and then I'll wipe off that paint because it's too strong and it's going to dry too hard. So I'm wiping it away. And also when I paint the building on the right hand side, if it's too strong, that's going to show through behind the buildings, so I don't want that behind the building, sorry. And now I'm using tissue. That's like real heavy action there, because that will really remove the paint. And now I'm using brilliant orange, and quite strong, because I want these colours to be pretty intense. I want this really to glow if possible. And now I'm adding alizarin crimson. It's sort of mixed with the brilliant orange a little, but these are quite pure colours I'm applying. I start below the orange and then I work up and blend them together. You can see how lovely it looks. Really what I'm doing is I'm mixing my colours on the paper, not the palette. And now I'm making a purple, And again, I start below and then I move up and blend it in. And you can just see how beautiful they are. Now I've gone for phthalo blue, almost pure phthalo blue, but I'm going to mix it in. I'm going right up, probably too high, it dried off a little bit there, but it's still okay. And that really looks glowing, doesn't it? And now even darker mix. I think that's phthalo blue, alizarin crimson, and there's a bit of burnt umber there that was in the palette. So I've really gone dark there. Now I'm using my liner brush. I've got a beautiful liner brush. There's just pure water on that liner brush, which I've dabbed on the rag, and then I flicked it to get rid of any drops. And I'm just doing thin lines going across, and you can start to see them appear through the paint. It's a real beautiful effect. And so I'm drawing or painting quite a lot of those lines. It's quite a fun thing to do. I think I've finished with that, and I'm going to leave it to dry, and you can see how it fades, right? Okay, now I've got my bamboo brush and I'm making a mix of phthalo blue, alizarin crimson, and there's probably some brown in there, burnt umber or something like that, a brown colour. And I'm doing the building now, and I'm beginning with the top because the top is the most difficult part, and also because the paper's tilted, and so I want the paint to run down. So this is a very complicated roof line. It's one building, I think, but it's got like not just, it's got more than one rooftop, and it's got a lot of chimneys. So this wash, although it's strong, it's quite a juicy wash, so it's not going to dry out very quickly, and that's important because I want this to stay wet, because I'm going to do another effect later, and if this is dry it's not going to work. So I'm being very careful now with painting these chimneys. The bamboo brush is very good for this. You can get really lovely thin lines. Sometimes I use tissue like there because there's a bit of splatter. You can't see it, but it really is there. You can't see it on the video. So I'm doing this fairly quickly, but at the same time trying to be careful. And again, splatters, lots of splattering is happening. It's interesting that you can't see that on the video. And now I'm getting a bit bolder because now I don't have to be quite so careful, just a filling in now. And you can see how I faded the background sky, so I'm not going to get anything showing through the building. Okay. I need to add a bit more to my mix. And get that line right. And then I'm spraying it to keep it all wet. Now don't spray at the paint, spray above it so that the drops fall down like rain, but gently. Because if you spray at the paint, then you'll actually move the paint and get blurred edges, which normally doesn't look so nice. Now I'm making a watery mix of burnt sienna, but it's quite strong, and this is the effect I wanted to do. I'm applying it to the top and I'm letting the paint run down, so the paper is tilted, and so this paint is running down and it's mixing with the purple and creating a lovely effect. So that part of the building I did with burnt sienna, but the next part I am using cerulean blue, and it's a kind of a cool blue, and I'm doing the top and then letting it run down. Oh, you can see my wire. So letting it run down. And then it's time to do the rocks. So I think I've changed now to my mop brush, because this is a big space now that I don't need to be quite so careful, and I can cover a lot of space quickly with this mop brush. And what I'm trying to say there is it's really important to make these rocks near to the horizon. I did this composition with the rocks lower down and it didn't look so good. So having these rocks high up near the horizon level is a better composition. And now I'm doing the same thing again. I did a purple wash originally, but now I've got a burnt sienna mix and I'm just applying that to the top of the purple wash, and it's running down and creating a beautiful effect. You can see it in the buildings now, can't you? You can see how it's run down and created a really lovely effect, which is unique to watercolor. This is not something you can do with oils or acrylics. You know, it's one of those unique characteristics or features of watercolor paper, painting. Okay, now I think I'm going for the reflections. Oh, maybe not. Oh yeah, I'm finishing off these rocks. So notice how I'm changing the colours a little, varying them. So sometimes I've got very purple. Now I'm adding burnt umber, pure burnt umber, because I just want to get that variety, and spraying, and that makes these colours blend. And that looks like quite a dark colour. And then there's blue. That's almost pure blue there, phthalo blue. Then burnt umber, and doing these rocks. So I'm painting really, or I'm mixing my colours on the paper, because it will give you much more intense colours. And this painting's really all about intense colours. And this is how you achieve that kind of effect. And spraying again, just to help blend them and hopefully create a bit of texture. Now I'm making a dark mix, phthalo blue, alizarin crimson, and something like burnt umber. And now I'm doing the reflections with my bamboo brush. And it's fairly quick strokes across, which gives a dry brush effect. And I'm trying to get accurate reflections. So what I'm trying to do is a mirror image of that rocky whatever in the sea, in the water. So I want it to be almost like a mirror image. And now I'm doing lines going across. So you can use a ruler, and I sometimes do, but the problem with a ruler is if the paint's wet in some area, then you might shift the paint with your brush and, you know, it might end up looking ugly. So I decided to do this freehand using my bamboo brush. Once you get into the swing of things, it's actually quite easy. And if you practice quite a bit on some scrap paper before you do this, well, a little, then you're probably going to feel a lot more confident. And now I'm doing these reflections. I feel like they need a bit more. And yeah, I'm trying to say that it's like a mirror image of the building. So an equal distance down as it is high, if that makes sense. Spraying, keeping it all wet, Sometimes I use my finger if something is a bit wrong or a bit too much, it can soften it. So that's very useful. Now I'm using pure blue here, cerulean blue, and I'm adding that to the top of the rocks, I think, just to create a bit more variety. And I'm doing splattering there in the right hand corner. And now phthalo blue, burnt umber and alizarin crimson, my favourite three when I do dark things, and I'm adding shadows now. So here are the shadows. So when you do these rock things, you want a variety of thick and thin lines, and sometimes little short dabs and sometimes longer strokes. And I want to keep the right hand side kind of less defined. Now I'm in the foreground adding shadows to these rocks. I actually spent a lot of time on these rocks. So yeah, just adding shadows, and some of these shadows will be really thick, but then I'll add one or two thin lines, and that combination normally ends up looking really good. So I'm not sure if I went too detailed here with these rocks, and I should have made it all a lot simpler. In reality, there were some rocks on this piece of land here, but there were also a lot of pebbles and a lot of moss or seaweed or something. But I prefer just to make it all rocky. So just continuing to add shadows, and then I'm beginning to back off here because I want that right hand side to be more vague and I'm less defined. Splattering again with cerulean blue, it just gives a lot of variety to the colours, and as this dries, that blue is going to come out more. At first it disappears, but then the more it dries, the more it begins to come back out again. So I'm adding now, I think, some burnt sienna to the top of that rock because I just wanted to give more colour, and cerulean blue to the top of this rock. So this is how you can really add some colour to your rocks rather than have them just grey. The right hand side, I want to make this vague, so I'm using cerulean blue and getting it to run down. It's partly a mistake because it's dry and I'm having to use my finger to wipe away so I don't get big ugly mark there. I don't want a hard edge, so using my finger helps a little to soften that. Okay, I'm splattering again. I really spent maybe too much time on these rocks. So that's cerulean blue, I'm just adding that, letting it run down. And splattering on burnt sienna. But it's a lot of fun, this. And yeah, burnt sienna on the top, let it run down. And then I'm wiping up the paint at the bottom because it begins to pool, and if you leave it, it will give you ugly cauliflowers. So I think now I did a basic assessment and I realized that this rocky shoreline at the front is very boring. It's all the same. There's nothing very exciting or dramatic happening. So I decided to make the rock on the left here bigger and stand out more. So that's just pure burnt sienna, I think. And you'll see me make some more corrections in a minute. I think I'm adding more shadows, but I'm going to change all of this soon. Well, some of this. Yeah, so it's difficult to see, but I'm adding shadows here. Little cracks and things like that to the rocks. Thick and thin lines. And then some shadow to that big rock on the left hand side. I hope I didn't say right before, but there you go. And then some cerulean blue, some splattering, and I'm using the tissue, I think, to get rid of those splatters that are in the sea where I don't want them. So if you're very quick, you can just remove them very, very easily. So you can see this picture really has a lot of luminosity in it. It really glows. And soon I'm going to alter, I think, this rocky coastline, shoreline again. Yeah, look. I just want to make it a bit more varied. So I'm going to have a long flat bit here. And I'm using pure cerulean just to add some colours there, because you can see there's there's warms, there's greys, there's cools, that variety in the rock surface. And that's it, we've come to the end, I think. So I hope you enjoyed that. Now please have a go. So please try, trying to get glowing paintings by being a bit more intense with your colours and by mixing your colours on the paper. And if you really have the courage, have a go at having the paint run down over a wash that's underneath. So you remember how with the buildings, first I painted them purple, and then I made a watery mix of burnt sienna and put it on top of that and had it run down. You'll really, really enjoy that. So that's all. If you're serious about learning watercolor painting, then I have some courses that are very, very thorough and will really help you with this fun but challenging medium. So happy painting, and bye for now.